Hey everybody, Mike Brancatelli here. I am back and I released my first podcast YouTube conversation with Michael Phillip, the host of Third Eye Drops. So go check that out. Maybe there's a link somewhere here to do that. But it's on this channel, it's on this podcast RSS feed, and happy to be back. I am so rusty. I feel like that old car that's just been sitting on the grass and the one that you were going to work on, but never quite really got to. And filled with dust and cobwebs, but we're here. So, first thing I want to say is I'm going to do a little intro for the new people, and then I'm going to move into stuff for the OGs. Um, New people, I'm Mike Brancatelli. I hosted a show called Mikeadelic from 2016 to 2022 and ended that show. I ended that show because if you're interested, go check out the episode called The End. It's out there, so you can still listen to it. Doing video is new for me. This is going to be a new component of this next chapter. Um, what else can I say? Let's see. Brief background from me. I started doing stand-up comedy in New York. I was the co-host of a political libertarian comedy podcast called Part of the Problem with Dave Smith. And then I started the Mikeadelic podcast, just called Mikeadelic, in 2016. And originally, that show was born out of the ideas of sort of anarcho libertarian philosophy and psychedelic culture and spirituality and it sort of morphed and evolved, and it got to a place in time where I felt like it just wasn't really the container that I wanted to be living in anymore. And so I ended that show in 2022, and this this episode, I'm going to talk about why and what I've been doing and what to expect and what's next and why am I here? Why am I on this microphone? Why are you watching me? All that kind of stuff. So, yeah, if you were new here, you could stick around. And also, there's going to be, I guess, more of a uh, intimate, direct conversation with the people who have supported me since 2016 and even further, a lot of people who came over from Part of the Problem, so they've been following me since 2014. And yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. So if you are interested in that, stick around. If not, then check out another video. All right, well, where to begin? Where to begin? Tom Petty said waiting is the hardest part, but I've got to think that I feel in my experience that starting again is the hardest part. Holy hell, I haven't struggled this much in my life to create anything really. Um, I've had many ideas and insights that I've actually done nothing with. But the thing that I want to do something with, which is this show, has taken me a very long time, and we're still not even there yet. The branding hasn't changed, the name hasn't changed, even though I have wanted it to. I have not landed on a new title for this show. So currently it is Mikeadelic. I changed my Instagram handle to Tafka_Mikeadelic, which stands for the artist formerly known as. It's just kind of a little rip-off joke of Prince when he changed his name to the artist formerly known as Prince. And I really wanted to separate myself from the energetic sigil that Mikeadelic was or is. Uh, I just felt like it was an important and necessary thing to do as I evolved and progressed in my thinking and in my exploration of ideas and transmission of thoughts and opinions in the public arena. Um, but I've really, really struggled, and I've landed on some titles, some names, some energetic containers, some new imbued magical sigils, but they just didn't feel right. I got really excited when I came back from Costa Rica in February after going to Envision Festival, and um, you know, by the way, I'm wearing these glasses, as you can tell, because I am have been sitting in front of these LED lights and my computer screen for hours. And I was doing a conversation actually that will come out soon with a good friend of mine, Mark Pontius, and um, my eyeballs by the end of the conversation were just like on fire. And a couple of my friends, actually, Mark has glasses like these, and some other people do. And I've kind of known about the blue blocker glasses, and just never really got around to getting them. So I finally got them because my rods and cones are getting all screwed up. My retinas are on fire from staring into LEDs for hours on end. So I don't want to go blind. I think that would not be good. So anyway, little side note, but I came back from Costa Rica with I don't know, maybe a manic energy of creating this new podcast. I thought of this really cool name, Fools on Parade. It was like a play on Bulls on Parade by Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine. I like the I like how that is. I mean, that I don't particularly align with everything that they stand for because they're not necessarily, I don't know if they really are committed to raging against the machine that I deem to be the machine. But yeah, I like that whole sort of rebellious kind of slant, and I like the twist on it, and but it doesn't really represent what this show is going to be about. And so I kind of abandoned that. And um I think that as a creator, sometimes when we're young and a little bit more naive and have this sort of like cockiness or overconfidence, that there's this raw energy that could come through, and it's kind of like it's raw and it's visceral and it's real, and it's you know it can be kind of cringe to listen to some of my old episodes, kind of cringe, totally cringe to listen to some of my older episodes. Sometimes I pop in just to kind of like revisit my consciousness at that time. And if there's one thing for certain, I'm definitely evolving, and I'm definitely learning and maturing, and I'm grateful for the ability to be able to do that. Um, but that's why I wanted to sort of send Mikeadelic out onto the river in a funeral pyre blazing in flames and shooting an arrow of fire onto it. Uh, just kind of release me from that. The other thing is that I don't really want to be represented, or I don't really want to be recognized as a psychedelic show per se. Psychedelics have been a big part of my life. They still are a big part of my life, um, theoretically, hypothetically. Uh, but but yeah, the the psychedelics have sort of become synonymous. Hmm. Psychedelics have sort of become synonymous with healing and medicine and therapy and wellness culture. And that was never the reason why I got into psychedelics. And so over the years, I had some guests on Mikeadelic that I probably didn't want to have on, or, there's probably, I don't know, maybe 20 or so episodes that I'm not really particularly proud of. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to just put episodes out to put episodes out. I don't want to take sponsors on just to take sponsors on. Uh, sometimes having conversations with people, I feel like I would get a little bit caught up in sort of that like mirror neuron type of thing where someone would be like, "Oh yeah, podcast. Oh cool. Oh, you have a podcast. Oh great. I'd love to be on the show." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, text me sometime." And it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to just have people on the show if I'm not really feeling and digging what they're doing. And sometimes it would be, I would get sent books by publishers and publishing houses, so many books, which I'll probably donate to Goodwill or something. And sometimes I would be like, okay, well, I don't really have a guest for this week, and um, they sent me this book, and it looks kind of interesting, and so and so had them on their podcast, and let me just check in with that person. That person says, yeah, that guest was pretty good or whatever, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll talk to them, and I think in the whole time of doing Mikeadelic, there were only maybe 2 episodes that I recorded and didn't put out. But that whole project too was, I mean, I was never really consistent with it. Yeah, I mean, this whole consistency thing too. I've just always had an issue with that. I am not really big into, carrying over the same sort of neurotic, nervous energy of the dominator culture to produce and be on top of it. And I just don't have that in me. I am into what I'm into, and when I'm not into something, I'm not into something, and I kind of want to just be able to move at my own speed. And I got caught up. Mikeadelic started gaining a lot of attention and getting a lot of listeners, and I would look at the episode downloads, and it went from 200 to 800 to 2,000 to 7,000, over the years, and I think I ended up with a total of like 800,000 total downloads all over the world, which is pretty cool. And then I look and I see that I'm in like the top, 1% or something like that of all podcasts worldwide, and it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. I I dig that. I like that. I like that I'm reaching a lot of people. But it felt like I had to sort of maintain this machine at this pace and this energy that I just never really wanted to do. And quite frankly, I didn't do. I I went back and looked at my catalog. I routinely said that I would release a podcast every week, and I did not ever release a podcast a week in the whole history of the show. Now, some people could say, like, wow, man, you got to hustle, you got to be motivated, you got to love it, you have a burning desire, a passion, you got to, if there's something you really love, you got to be all in and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just not me. I mean, I'm not really that way with anything. I think in the early days of Mikeadelic, I was, but I was coming from a place of wanting to prove something or wanting to sound smart or, uh, yeah, I think a lot of that came from the world of stand-up comedy. You are constantly judged and critiqued every night, and there's a high that comes with pleasing a crowd and getting that laughter and getting that direct feedback and that approval. And I think I always had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because, I got kicked out of high school and I never graduated. And then I got my GED and I went to college. And, I always knew I was smart. I just didn't fit into the school model. I didn't want to do what I never wanted to do, what the dominant culture, society wanted me to do. I would be like, why? Why do I have to get up at the ass crack of dawn, stand outside in the freezing cold, wait for a bus, go to a ugly building, sit under ugly fluorescent lights, burning my retinas out, listening to some teacher just want to tell me about how George Washington never told a lie or whatever the hell it was, and the bell rings and you march along to the next. I've always felt like a outsider, like an alien, and conformity at a young age was something that helped me survive. I quickly kind of found out that I was funny, and people seemed to like that. And that was a way for me to sort of feel like I fit in or I belong somewhere. I could kind of be a wild and crazy party guy and be funny and weird and wild and wacky and say outrageous things and be very rebellious and really get a rise out of a lot of my friends, because I would do things that they would be like, "Holy shit!" Like, I would. It kind of blows my mind that Mike's doing that, and that was, I grew up in not such a great home. I mean, I love my parents, I love my family, but at the time, it was tough to grow up in an environment that was hostile and aggressive, and my parents would fight and things like that. And so I was like, I don't want to be here. I want to be out. I want to be with my friends. I want to be partying. I want to be chasing girls. I want to be doing cool things. I want to try drugs. I want to do all kinds of stuff. And um, so I never felt like I really like fit in anywhere. And I carried that persona on for a long time. And I carried it into comedy and I carried it into the podcasting. And that was it took a long time for me to realize that it wasn't really that the show wasn't really serving me anymore. It wasn't really truly authentic to me. It was an aspect of my personality. It was a part of me, but it wasn't really all of me. And I wanted to take that time off and I wanted to get back to who I really truly am. And in the last couple years, I feel like I've really done that. And I want to be able to come on here and people ask me, what is the podcast about? What's your new podcast about? What are you going to talk about? And I don't know how to answer that question in a succinct way because I like to talk about all that there is. Um, and I guess when I say I like to talk about all that there is, I'm not talking about any, this isn't a murder mystery true crime show. This isn't a show that explores the migration pattern of snails. This isn't a show about electronics. It's not about anything, but it's about. I've always been fascinated about what are we doing here? Why are we here? What can we do? What's possible? Why do we have to? Why do we have to fit into why do we have to fit into these square pegs? Why can't we make new things or do things in new ways? What is preventing us as human beings from breaking the mold? And why does everything feel so kind of hostile and alien and weird? And through my experiences and my discoveries in life, I have gotten in touch with my soul and I've gotten in touch with my true nature and the true nature of being. And I feel very confident about our true nature of being and the true nature of the world and reality. And that is what I'm interested in. That is what interested in talking about. And it's not a spiritual show, you know. It's not a a Buddhist show. It's not rooted. It is a mm, I don't know, syncretic confluence or convergence of the experiences and understandings that I've gained and attained and that I could transmit. I mean that is that is how I feel. I don't feel like there is this hard line delineation between spiritual people and non-spiritual people. The idea of such a divide is a false hierarchy often created by newly initiated people into the path, into the spiritual life, into the altered state, non-ordinary life as a way to elevate themselves over others so they feel more important or more special, more awakened, more enlightened than those sheep out there and those normies and those muggles, and that just kind of fosters more separation rather than unity. And Lord knows, like I used to be that way. I started out as a fundamentalist, psychedelic, anarchist zealot. Uh, Wake up, you sheep, unplug from the matrix. And it's after banging my head against a brick wall for a while, metaphorically, like, you know, all of my enlightenment has all of my like insight, it has come from delusionment. Just all of my illusions being shattered and all of my certainties being imploded. But I really feel now that just simply being alive is a spiritual experience, whether it's labeled as such or recognized by anyone. It just is the nature of being. And of course, while courting the great spirit, the goddess, the divine, the transcendental, the all, the eternal, it can be helpful to be fancy and decorate and praise and worship and adorn yourself and surround yourself with an aesthetically pleasing environment of trinkets and accessories and rituals. And but a lot of people get lost in the sauce, like really lost in the sauce, me included, and can identify with the images and the symbols and the materials, and they attach too much to the externalities of the image of being spiritual, the image of being spiritual, especially in our material, external centric, hyperactive, doing based culture. It becomes a shallow, hollow kind of, there's no true depth to it. It's like watering a fake plastic plant. There's nothing alive in these people that they want to be able to receive the nourishment, but they're a fake plastic tree. They're LARPing, they're live action role playing. And like I said, I was there too. So I'm trying to speak from a place of compassion and experience. But I really don't believe that you need to burn sage and waft feathers or wear beaded necklaces. You don't need to speak in a special language or in a certain tone of voice. Thank you for sharing that, brother. I love you, my brother. You don't need to fawn or fake, take plant medicines, do ceremonies, call in the directions. You don't need to do 33 deep belly breaths in between every thing that you do. You don't need to meditate. You don't need to worship at altars or kneel in temples. These material symbols often are conflated with genuine spiritual depth, and they're not necessary for a true spiritual experience, because the true spiritual experience is just being here and paying attention and being aware and being sensitive to your environment. To be alive is to be a spiritual being. Spirituality is a fundamental experience of existence, and it's available to everyone without any special effort or practice or rituals. It's not something to be earned or achieved, but just something that is the nature of being. And so you can, you can be an accountant or a truck driver or an electrician and be a spiritual being. You don't need to wear big hats and go to Bali to be a spiritual being. You don't need to post about how spiritual you are. And this is something that JP Sears was making fun of a lot of people, and I had him on the podcast in 2017, and it was great. And my good friend Adam Aronovich, who runs the page Healing from Healing, who sometimes I collaborate with, is really has his finger on the pulse of the sort of wacky, you know, sort of exponential weirdness of this kind of way of being in this community. And so, you know, in the bare bones of it, and it is Cho Young Trumpa would say, it's like basic goodness, the being in the world and knowing that you are not of the world, and being one with your surroundings and your environment, being attuned and being attentive and being compassionate and being kind. And you know it's it can be a lot because we have to decondition ourselves and reprogram ourselves and heal ourselves to, or at least work on healing ourselves, our reactivity, our patterns, and things like that, to get to a place where we can really kind of be okay with what is. And ultimately, I believe it comes from an understanding, a deep understanding that can only be experienced, that this is an infinite, eternal game that we get to play, that is real and raw and visceral and messy and ugly and filled with all of the infinitesimal amounts of sensory input data available to our human experience, or the the ways in which we have our unique specific experiences. So a lot of what I want to talk about is the big juicy stuff, and I want to talk about it from my experience. And I've given a lot of thought about this, and I've really had a lot of time to chew on it. And I have I've been to some places. I've had some experiences, and um I'd like to be able to share those, and I'd like to be able to share my thoughts and my feelings and my opinions. And so I'm not necessarily going to be exploring anything per se. I will explain things that I feel need to be explained. However, I'm not going to sort of pigeonhole myself to one domain or one modality or one school of thought, or uh, I don't particularly I don't particularly sit in any one arena of way of being. I wanna I wanna be I want to choose how I speak carefully, because I don't want it to lose anyone. I want to speak as plainly and as simply as possible so that I'm understood, and that this is not an exercise in um being smart and sounding smart or looking or sounding spiritual, or this is an exploration of the nature of things, and again, the nature of things in relationship to our human experience. And if there are any real beliefs that I have, those beliefs are that I feel that we have been severely disconnected from our natural state of being, that we're living in a world constructed out of the ego and hubris of narcissistic, sociopathic maniacs who have crafted a meticulous game that we all play, and we inherit the remnants of the container that we exist in, that we take the shape and form of the conditions and the borders and the boundaries that we operate and play within. And when I see how things are playing out in the world, I look at them in a various number of ways. And it seems to me that we are persisting in a lot of foolish endeavors, that we are allowing a lot of reckless, careless, soulless, hostile, aggressive people to take the reins. As Terence McKenna said, we are led by the least among us. Um, and that we can do, I believe that we can do a better job of coming up with creative, appealing alternatives that eventually render the old system obsolete. I also do believe that we are in a transitioning epoch. We are in a period of time where this is sort of the gestation period or the incubation phase, the chrysalis of transformation, that this is a cosmic collective ancient archetypal energy that is like a weather pattern. It's like a storm. And a lot of what I want to talk about is like how to navigate the storm, how to navigate the fire in the madhouse at the end of time, to be able to feel like we can find some footing and that we are equipped with all the tools of being resilient and being not being susceptible to propaganda and um, far out conspiracies that are oftentimes distractions because they are alluring and appealing and they help kind of concretize and make sense of things. Like I think everybody is wanting to feel like they understand things. And, I'm imagining somebody right now, like you're talking to someone who is just in a particular slice of reality. They're in a particular dimensional frequency of reality. And they are just like, wow, I don't need to know about how to think about things. Like I know what it is. Like I go to work, I pay the bills. Like I come home, I have a slice of pizza, I eat, drink a beer, I watch my show, I play with my kids, I talk to my wife. Easy, simple. This is what it is what it is what it is. This is life, right? And that's fine. That's fine. Everything is fine if you are feeling fine with it. If you are suffering and in turmoil and just a wreck, well, then it's not fine. So this show is for people who feel like there could be something more. They sense something, feel something, and want to explore. How do we get there? Because it has to be a we. It has to be a community exploration. We have to do it together, and we can't do it alone. And we've never done it alone. Uh, and it's a find the others kind of mission with a goal to orient around a place of practical real world action. I don't want this to be a show that is just a collection of fascinating ideas that only exist in the realm of fascinating ideas. So it just becomes something that you passively engage with on a screen and say, "Oh, that was interesting. Oh, that was exciting. Oh, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. I can't wait till the next episode." This is not a uh bicameral organ stimulation device machine production. This is not just to get off, to get high neurologically and to be like, "Ooh, yeah, cool, that's exciting," or even to really feel something. And be like, wow, that listening to that, watching that produced a good feeling in me. okay, well, what can we do with that? What can we do with that? Uh, that is a huge aim of mine for this show is how can we get together and dialogue with each other and talk to each other, and that I feel is where the soul and the mind really stretch, and we can push and pull and poke and prod and challenge and debate and dialogue and really kind of stress test ideas and language and words and concepts and abstract symbols and start to co-create and collaborate towards new things that quite possibly are rooted in old ways. I'm a big fan of the concept of archaic revival, the ancient future, as Charles Eisenstein says, new and ancient stories, or this concept of sort of like reawakening and reemerging from a sort of you know drunken stupor, if you will, of like the last 8,000 years of civilization, and kind of returning to a point where we can start to wake up and remember after a long period of forgetting who we are and why we're here and what makes us feel happy, healthy, whole, and in tune and loving and kind, and start to imagine and dream things that maybe right now are only relegated to fantasy or science fiction. So that is a big aim for this show, and I want to be able to do solo podcasts. I want to be able to have conversations, and I want to be able to get people that are interested in diving deeper to join a Zoom group community, maybe 8 or 12 people, to just go deep and really kind of bring back this idea of like the salon, or this idea of like the sort of revolutionary spirit of the pubs of early America, or the Renaissance and the coffee houses, or just the places where people would go to debate and dialogue and communicate and collaborate and um, innovate. And I really I think that that happens best when we are physically together in a space. Second best would be virtually together in a space, but it happens best when we are together and when there is conversation and back and forth happening. There's sort of an industryification of ideas and knowledge and wisdom, and we sort of venerate and put up these people who maybe deserve to be really respected and appreciated, like someone like a Ram Dass or an Alan Watts, or some of my heroes. But we look at them like they're these stagnant figures that are just to be worshipped and admonished and praised, and we can regurgitate their quotes, and we can see a meme or a quote online and feel good about it and say, oh yeah, and repost it. But where does it go? How does it live? How does it become real and alive? How do we ensoul it into the world and manifest it into a living, breathing, fully functioning organism that we can imbibe and embody and navigate and use and start to implement? And that's what I want from this show. That's what I want from this transmission, is not to be a one-way street, but really sort of a guide into a larger area. And yeah, I'll be exploring some things that I will solo cast about, and I'll have conversations with friends, with guests, and it'll mostly revolve around a lot of the things that I'm talking about right now. And so if you're interested in that, if you want to participate in that, uh, leave a comment, let me know, and we can get that going. We can get that going really, really soon. I almost imagine like a talk radio show where people call in and we get to hash out ideas, except this will be in more of a group format and obviously podcast YouTube form. Yeah, we are living in very, very interesting times. And I say that not just because of what is happening outside that we see and we witness from the comfort of our homes, but what we experience in the world, how we handle an interaction of potential conflict out in the world. How do we create resilience? How do we create understanding? How do we communicate with compassionate authority and with like-minded individuals and non-like-minded individuals? How do we bridge worlds together? Because we're not going to, part of what the sort of the top brass of the earth want to do is like break away from the the mess that they've created and go into their bunkers or go into space or go into their mountain houses or whatever they're going to do or whatever they do or want to do. But for the rest of us, there's there seems to be like an effort to sort of insulate or bubble away or compartmentalize and be like, okay, well, I'm in a spiritual community and so I don't want that negativity in, or I don't want to think about those things, and we just exist in this world of pleasure and hedonism and goodness and fulfillment of playing music and drinking medicine and that kind of stuff, and that's all well and good. And also it's ignoring and being blind to the totality and the whole, because we're all in this together. You live in a shitty area and you move to a better area, uh, eventually that area is going to be shitty like the last area you left, and then eventually there's not going to be any more areas to go. We're all on the same planet, we're all here together. And so the answer isn't insulating or bubbling away, I believe. And it's not escaping and bunkering up, but it's really kind of moving through it all, with it all. And it takes cultivating a particular kind of level of being to be able to do that. And this is not me saying that I'm there or anything. This is me inviting you to join me along on this journey. So that's a little bit about what to expect from this channel. Um, I don't know how frequently I'm going to be releasing. I hope to be releasing once a week. Maybe it'll be twice a week. Maybe it'll be once every couple weeks. There will be some regularity. There will be some consistency. I don't plan on taking any sponsors or anything like that right now. Uh, I think the only way that I would do that is if it's something that I actually genuinely use and love. Uh, and for now, it's just going to be interesting conversations. Hopefully, they'll be thought provoking, and that's the aim, is to share a little node of my subjective experience and others, and provoke interesting thought and um, to spark a sense of remembrance of what life could be like, when we are living in a more harmonious way and more in tune with our natural state of being, when we feel like our nervous system is regulated and in sync with our environment, that we bring soul back into the conversation and into the planet and into the collective consciousness, that we re-ensoul ourselves and the world and revision reality to uh, suit a more habitable place for human beings and all life, and that we use things to a point of necessity and not overdoing it and hoarding and being excessive. It's poisonous, it's cancerous, it's toxic, right? Growth isn't always good. Growth is can be detrimental. And so, really trying to discern how we're growing and where we're growing and what we're growing into. And I do believe, like I said, that we are in this chrysalis phase and we are in this incubation hub in this realm in this portal on this bridge of transformation. And where do we want to go? And who do we want to be? And how do we want to do it? And what's possible? And what can we do? And what can we learn from the ancients? And what can we learn from the esoteric? And what can we learn from the new and the modern? And how can it all be distilled and implemented in a way that works and that makes sense, right? And this is coming from a place um, of consciousness, of understanding, of communication, of presence, of attunement, of being. And so I hope that all makes sense. And if it does, I'd love to hear feedback. I'd love to hear comments. I'd love to hear how many people are excited to be a part of a discussion group. And yeah, till next time, I'll have more of these kinds of episodes where it'll just be me solo. I'm a little tired tonight, so I'm a little bit more low energy. And I've got the conversation out with Michael Phillip of Third Eye Drops. Check that out. And after that, I'll have a conversation with Mark Pontius, my friend Travis, and and Brian James of Howl in the Wilderness, another great show that I love very much. Someone who is really committed and dedicated to re-ensouling the world and holding space for people to uh, rediscover their soul. Well, thank you very much for listening. Until next time, like, share, subscribe. Please support this if you like it and you want to see more. It helps keep me going, helps keep me motivated. And I love to hear from you. And I love to know that there is a resonance and a connection out there. And it keeps me motivated to sit down and record on nights like this when I'm tired. And um, yeah, thank you. And look forward to hearing from you. And I hope you enjoy everything that's coming. Till next time, peace.